Thank you for joining us again. This is the Lazy Millennial Movement, and I'm so excited today to be bringing you our next guest, Keiona Eady. Thank you so much for agreeing to be a feature on Lazy Millennial. I'm super excited to talk to you and to learn more about all the things that you have going on, and I think that the audience will be pretty excited also. So just to give you all a taste of, or a short taste of what Keiona's been up to, Keiona is from the great state of South Carolina, the Low Country to be exact, and she's a 2012 graduate of Clemson University, which is an awesome institution in the great state of South Carolina. Keiona runs a super exciting podcast called New Geechee, and it was inspired by her aspiration to highlight the successes and stories of millennials, which of course I think is an awesome mission and endeavor. And so she's going to talk to us a lot more about New Geechee and everything that entails. She's also just amazing in every other aspect of life. She's a proud member of the Temple Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the best sorority, SOR. And also she was just recognized as one of the 40 under 40 for the Greater Phoenix Urban League Young Professionals. So kudos to you, Keiona. And if you could just tell us a little bit more about the New Geechee podcast and how that concept was developed and came to be.
Absolutely. So Megan, I want to start by saying thank you so much for having me.
You're welcome. No problem.
Are doing. You are so fabulous, and just continuing to diversify your portfolio of things that Megan can do, right? So pharmacists, the vlogger, to now that's awesome.
Thank
so
you.
Yeah, look at that. I just lost my earrings.
This is the so excited your earrings falling off.
Absolutely. So this is real life Keiona, right? So I is a regular girl living a regular life, and things like this happen, right? So obviously, I grew up being very much Jill of all trades. Like, my attention is like a little puppy who sees a butterfly pass by, but then sees an airplane, but then sees a ball, right? So I love just kind of like being intrigued by different things. So, going to Clemson, I ended up graduating with a management degree, but I was an education major. So lots of transition there. When I graduated, I started selling paint for Sherwin-Williams. I did that for a year, and then transitioned to what I would call like maybe my big girl job when I worked for Continental Tire, and I was like a sales representative. So Continental afforded me the opportunity to move for the first time out of the great state of South Carolina to Boston, Massachusetts, like one of the largest cities in America.
That's a big transition.
Very big. And I was just so excited and ready to do it. So while I'm navigating life and I'm Jill and I don't really know what I want to do, the only thing that I always knew I wanted to do was travel and see the world. So I was very grateful they gave me that opportunity. I lived in Boston, and I had the year of like just self-revelation, like who am I and what do I want to do? So really New Geechee was sparked by a conversation that I had with some bros. We're sitting at a bro's house, sitting, drinking, talking. And it gets really deep. We start talking about people not living in their purpose. And we talk about people not being happy with what they're doing. And this one brother, he was like, if you ever feel like you don't like what you're doing, save your bread and leave. And I was like, that's stupid. I would never do that. Because I'm Keiona. I'm the oldest. I'm very secure. I like stability. But I held on to that. And then we also were just talking. He was like, yo, you have a radio voice. And I was like, huh? He's like, yo, you have a voice that's like pretty radio-like. Like, I love it. I was like, thank you.
Nobody had ever told you that before, I would imagine.
At that point, I had never heard it.
Okay.
But it was crazy, and it just kind of stuck with me. So what was even crazier is like maybe a couple weeks later, I was talking to one of my customers, and they said the same thing. And I was like, okay, this is kind of weird, but whatever. Never thought about the radio. So I ended up moving from Boston, moving to Arizona, and my spirit was shook. What are you supposed to be doing? You're not supposed to be selling tires for the rest of your life. So I'm thinking about how I can maximize my gifts. So I started reaching out to friends and saying, what do you think I'm good at? I think I can do everything, but what do you think I'm really good at? And people continue to feed into like, you're very good with communicating with people. You're very good about making people feel special. So I kind of rolled with that and revisited that idea that, hey, you have a radio voice. And I was like, okay, well, maybe I want to get into radio.
Right.
And I was talking to France. Shout out to my line sister, France. And she was like, have you ever heard of a podcast? I was like, nope.
What year is this right now? Like,
this is May 2016. Okay. And I'm like, nope, never heard of it. She was like, you should really check it out. Like, it's pretty easy to do. People do it all the time. Mm-hmm. And they record and they can post on the internet and have a show. And I was like, oh, okay. May 2016 of my birthday. So I'm like playing with the idea. I'm like, I'm going to start a podcast. One night I was laying in the bed. Geechee hit me out of nowhere. And it was just kind of playing with words. Okay. Ultimately, what I wanted to do was share the stories of like coming from South Carolina, which has its own struggles and own story. And I wanted to kind of talk about like that opportunity to be Geechee, to be rooted in something so strong, but to have new opportunities that allow you to grow and develop and evolve. Right. So that's kind of like where Geechee came from. Okay. And then I played around for a long time, but by, let's say October, I just had to pull the plug. I recorded in my car pretty much every day, just talking, trying to get comfortable. Mm-hmm. And then finally, I talked to my friend after about recording 20 episodes of the first episode. She was like, you need to record 2 more and pick one. And that's what I did. And I was so scared, but I did it. And I'm so glad that I did it. And here we are, 43 episodes later.
43. That's amazing. Congratulations.
Thank you.
That's really dope. That's stepping out on faith, really, because I think what holds a lot of people back is that fear, right? Like, you see something that people are saying you're good at, or you feel like you're good at, or you want to make a difference in that area, but like there's that fear that's like, what if I fail? What if I'm not as good as people say I am? What if I embarrass myself? Like all these things that you just have to push through and you just have to do it.
Absolutely. Nothing to it but to do it.
Right. So now for anyone who's not familiar with the Geechee culture, can you explain what Geechee is?
Absolutely. So I'm going to start by saying like, I'm not 100% Geechee Gullah. So forgive me for that. But I'm from Cross, South Carolina, which is the outskirts of the Low Country in Charleston. And my family is really rooted in Charleston. So if you go back to like my great-grandma, you would probably never understand her, right? But I have just been, I don't know, my grandmother was like, you're going to talk proper. So that's kind of like where I got this refined Geechee accent from. But really what it is we've been privileged enough, obviously, to kind of hold on to traditions and a dialect from West Africans and islanders who were brought to Charleston, obviously through slavery, excuse me. And so really living in that, you don't even know how special it is and what we eat and how we communicate and different traditions until you go away and you realize how different you are. And that was really what happened is like when I moved away, I kind of like realized how different South Carolinians and people from the Low Country really were and how everybody didn't eat rice like I did. I eat rice like with every meal. And just like how I say words. And really, when I'm communicating, I talk like this, but then when I really start talking, I get real comfortable. You might hear a little Geechee. So people be like, oh my God, what is that? It's beautiful. I love it. And so really it's just kind of like a celebration of holding on to some traditions that actually have been found to be linked back to West Africa. So it's a beautiful thing. It's kind of like this little piece of Africa that's still being held on to right here in South Carolina.
Yeah. And that's amazing. I know a lot of people, when they come to South Carolina, they're really surprised to see that because they don't even know that it's there. So I'm really glad that you incorporated that culture as a part of your outreach platform and your mechanism. That's really great to spread that.
Absolutely.
Spread that knowledge.
Yeah, no problem. I haven't really dug into it, but I'm about to dig in 2018 because it's really starting to catch some traction. I know a lot of people might have read the article about how Harvard is about to offer a course on Geechee culture. And so really it's getting like a bigger national spotlight. And so I want to kind of make sure people kind of know the real nitty gritty and not the polished, watered down college version of what it is.
That's important. Great. So talk to me about how you went from how you managed to do this, right? New Geechee Podcast, which is definitely a creative outlet, something that's very personal to you.
Yeah.
And then managing that with like your daytime job and your other responsibilities, your family, your sorority involvement, urban league involvement. Like how do you do all that at one time?
Oh my God. So let's go back. I launched October 5th, 2016,
All
and
right.
I was really in a dark place with my job. So my job that moved me to Arizona, I had already been talking about, I got to leave this job, and this really didn't help. So me getting full force and diving into New Geechee the way that I did was like, let's come up with another plan. So the long story is I quit my job in December.
Okay.
And decided that I wanted to go. I'm sorry.
After you launched New Geechee, like
Yep. So I launched New Geechee in October, and I decided I quit my job in December.
All right.
And so my plan was, if I'm really going to go into this broadcasting thing, I'm going to go for it. I had saved my money. I was thinking about how I was going to monetize the podcast and really just figure it out. Like just start living my dreams today and stop waiting. So I was going to get an internship. I really tried. And I didn't get an internship with a radio station until about March.
Okay.
So really what you find is from October to about that March period, I am balls deep, for lack of a better term, into growing my podcast. But really you got to remember, in May, I didn't even know what a podcast was. So I am learning all of this straight off of the dome, off the rip, and had never listened to one before I had been introduced to them in May. So I ended up getting an internship. I hustled my way through 2017 and didn't get another job until September.
Okay.
Great experience. I won't bore you guys, but it's a balance, right? And I think that when you do get excited about something, you have to invest your energy into it, right? So we really are one person. We only have like one set of energies. So when you start exerting more energy in one direction, obviously other things are going to lag.
Right.
So being Keiona, being Miss Socialite, I kind of fell off the scene. People really didn't understand that. Like, where you at? Like, you used to be at everything. Well, I can't, because I'm like over here trying to grow this podcast. Right. For family, it was easy because I already don't live that close to my family. Like, I'm the one here on the West Coast.
Okay.
But it makes it hard too, because you like want to share your success with your family. So I just say, like, we're in our 20s, you know, some of us 30s as millennials. This is a time, I think, to kind of like go hard so that when it's time to really settle down, you can retire and you will have things kind of working and moving for you. So I think the people who understand. Some people won't understand, but you can't go off that. You have to keep your vision in perspective. And then you just have to also carve out time to care for yourself. I think that's where I messed up, is I was going so hard that I kind of forgot about just taking care of myself, and it caught up with me. And you just have to kind of balance. Balance is
it's so easy to lose sight of that, like your self-care, like, you know, it's a popular term right now, but literally you have to take care of yourself. And like you said, when you have so much energy, especially creative energy, being exerted in some other place, and you have all these other things you're trying to balance, like you end up being the last person on that totem pole. And I was just telling my friend the other day, like, when I'm really stressed, my mind doesn't perceive stress. Like, it takes a long time for me to mentally feel like, okay, I got a lot going on, I'm stressed. But my body will like be like, no, you gotta shut it down. Like, this is too much. And so, sometimes if you're not taking care of yourself, like, your body will let you know real quick that, like, you gotta get it together.
Honestly, the podcast, I pushed through, but like, if you listen to all the episodes from last year, you hear I am like sick. Like, I am just holding on by grace and faith. My allergies were killing me all year, and I just pushed it underneath the rug. So I just highly advise that just make sure you take care of yourself in the process. And just love on yourself, man. Self-care, it's a real thing.
It's a real thing, right? Okay, so hopefully this isn't too personal, but relatively specific question. So when you say you quit your job in December, correct? Okay, and then you hustled your way to 2016. You got the internship at the radio station in March, you said?
Yep.
Okay. And so you had saved up enough money to get you through that time. Like, talk to us about resources as far as time and money, because I feel like that's a legitimate, concrete concern that some millennials may have when they're trying to go for their dreams. But, there's a time investment, there's a money investment, like a financial investment that, you can't just be reckless out here just like doing whatever. You have to make sure that you can live and persist too. So how did you manage to do that?
Absolutely. And so I would tell you guys, definitely, hold on. Earring back. So I would definitely tell you guys that you should definitely really take a close look. So I thought I took a little look, and I had what is it? 5 digits saved, right? And what happened was everything that I didn't think was going to happen happened. I was living with a roommate. My expenses were down. My roommate said, I'm moving out. My expenses went back to double, right? The one thing that I'm holding on to is my podcast, and I'm recording and I'm going in. Guess what happens one day? My computer just crashes.
And it's a cheap thing to happen. Like, that's a big deal.
Oh no, this is a $2,000 investment that I have right now. What else happened? I had never bought gas. I worked for a company for 3 years. They gave me a company card. I have to buy a car. I have to buy gas. I have insurance. I have all these things that I kind of didn't really plan for. But I am very grateful to say, like, the faith that I had in God kind of helped push me through, right? So I quit my job December. January 1st was my start date of not having a job, and I cried all New Year's because I didn't know what I was going to do. And maybe January the 4th, this opportunity presented itself for me to become a part of Your Art Party, which is an art studio. So you guys know about the Paint Sips?
Yeah.
When I was living in South Carolina, I was hosting Paint and Sips at my house with my friends.
Because where else can you go paint and sip in South Carolina, right? It's not popular.
It's not a lot of places. So I bought all the supplies after going to one party and would have them at my house. And then when I moved to Boston, I wanted to make it a hobby and do something with it. But a studio told me that I didn't have an art degree, that they wouldn't hire me.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So here I am. I get this opportunity immediately, and boom, it blows. Like, this opportunity not only is kind of therapeutic for me, but it provides income that I didn't even think about going into the new year. So I'm really grateful for that. And then I started driving Lyft. So really, you have to put your foot to the metal when you do something like that, because even if you have money saved, you got to keep money coming in, because stuff like your roommate gonna move out, it's gonna happen.
It's gonna happen as soon as you sign that dotted line, because that's just how life works.
Oh, absolutely. Everything you could think of is going to happen, but you really have to be rooted in God. And I think God really helped me with that decision. Like, I didn't go without anything during that period. But for me, I was just like, I need to get another job right now that I'm kind of crafting my vision of what I want to do and how I want to go there. Going back into a corporate job is not going to be the worst thing that happens, but definitely come up with a plan. I don't think that I didn't make a concrete plan, but that was the beauty of it too, is I have always been so secure, so well planned, that doing something that crazy or just quitting my job without this concrete plan, it really kind of gave me a confidence that I never had either.
Yeah.
So I now know what I'm really capable of. Like, I know that I can grind it out if I need to, and do what I need to do. But it gave me a lot of perspective. So I say, talk to the financial people that you know. We all of us have one friend who is in finances. Talk to them. that helped me. Shout out to my friend Stephen Hughes of No Money. He talked to me a little bit about finances and budgeting, and just have a plan.
Have a plan and make sure that you're motivated, because right, like you have this idea that you want to go hard for, but like, excuse the phrase, when the shit hits the fan and like you've quit your job and now you have all of these other expenses coming up, like you got to make it happen. And if you don't have that passion for it and that true motivation, then it might be easy to say, okay, maybe I made a mistake. Like maybe I need to go back to what I was doing before. Like you have to make sure it's something that you genuinely want and genuinely care about. I think that's important too.
Yes. And I think just not having as much experience about how this whole thing works, I'm learning everything. So that's why it's okay. Keep everything in perspective, right? Like everything is not going to pop just right when you want it to. So you have to just know there is a time for learning and growing and developing before all of those fruits can harvest.
Right.
So really that's what I did, is I took a step back to say, Keiona, let's like revisit this idea. Let's get back. Let's save the money. For those of you who want to start something and get out of corporate, just know that that money that you're earning right now, that solid whatever check you get every 2 weeks or every month, that can help you. Like, don't underestimate this time and experience that you're getting or that money that's coming, because this hustling thing, it's not glitter.
And it's not overnight, and it's not even guaranteed. Like it ultimately, honestly, if you want to be real about it, like it might not work. Whatever your idea is, it might never work.
Yes,
and
absolutely.
you have to be aware of that possibility, but like willing to push through and try and give it 120% regardless.
Yes, there you go. I couldn't have said it better. I wouldn't discourage anybody from taking that step out, but I just would say, keep everything in perspective and have a plan. Have a plan. That plan is not going to go the way you want it to, but if you have some kind of chassis to hold on to and navigate, then that's better than just being blind and not knowing. And again, the biggest thing you can do is hold on to the faith that you have in God, that He will provide. He has not left me astray this entire time. And I'm talking about the craziest things have happened.
So you talked about having to learn everything, right? Because you didn't even know what podcasting was before France brought it up to you. Girl. So if someone is looking to get into podcasting, like say there's a millennial out there, like I really want to start a podcast in 2018, what are some resources you would recommend, or like how would you recommend they go about learning about podcasting, and I don't know, the equipment they need, what kind of topic they need to choose? What were some of your favorite resources to use?
Absolutely. Well, let me tell y'all, number one, let's say Megan drops a word that I don't even know right now. What am I going to do? I'm going to use this friend and I'm going to Google it. So I'm telling you, utilize Google, because the worldwide internet is packed with information, and you need to go beyond the first page of results, right? So that's what I did, is I really kind of dug into reading articles and trying to figure out what was going on. There are a lot of podcasters who get this question all the time, and they podcast about how to start a podcast. So I listened to a lot of shows. Who did one? I really enjoyed listening to Carrie Ann Reed Brown of the Carry On Friends podcast.
You write that down. Carrie Ann Reed Brown.
Yeah, she is definitely an amazing podcaster, and she kind of concentrates on Caribbean American culture.
Okay.
She has a podcast series about how to start a podcast. Raina Campbell of Dreams and Drive also talked about how to start a podcast and consults on that. So really, Googling will help you, but it's simple. You really just need to go to the local equipment, Best Buy kind of store, and get you a mic that USBs up to your computer. And I remember Malik Till, who I listened to as well, she said when she first started her podcast, she just recorded through the computer. So you need some kind of hardware computer, not hardware, you need some type of recording device, a microphone. I would say get headphones so you can kind of listen to your audio, and then some kind of software. So I use GarageBand. Okay. And a lot of people will use Audacity as well. So that's kind of like your editing software. So once you record, how do you kind of play with it, get out the ums? And I didn't know how to utilize them, but you learn by just doing, like, I remember the day that I figured out how to cut out ums. I was like, oh my God, how did this happen? It took me long enough. But I learned from doing.
Right.
So you need the software, you need the hardware. And then from there, people listen to podcasts across many different platforms, but your tops are going to be Apple Podcasts, which was iTunes, Google Play, SoundCloud, and Stitcher for the most part. So once you get your RSS feed, which hopefully doesn't go over your head, but it's the place where your podcast is being hosted, then it can filter out to the other different listening platforms.
Okay.
So I host from SoundCloud. You will dish out some bread to kind of be hosted somewhere. So anywhere from about $20 to maybe $40 a month you could pay to host from a website.
Okay.
And then you make sure that you attach your feeds to iTunes and Stitcher and Google Play so that everybody can listen from all those different platforms.
And is that another investment too, to make sure that your feeds are going to all those other platforms also?
No. So the blessing is that, with Google Play, iTunes, and Stitcher, those are free. Okay. You just have to host from somewhere. And once you host, that's where the money is.
Got you.
So you get lucky in that way. It's really not hard. I would say if I broke it down to a month-to-month basis, you're looking somewhere about maybe $50 to $100 to have a podcast.
Okay.
And then you utilize all of your other free resources like Instagram, Twitter,
all social media outlets to promote and get the word out there. Because that's a big part too. Like, people, I think when they get into any type of content creation, like YouTube, podcasting, blogs, like, you think about all the content that you have to create, but like the biggest part is making sure that people see it. Because if you create it and nobody sees it, then what are you spending all this time and money doing this for? So social media, that's important. Speaking of social media, so, of course, that's big with millennials, even those who aren't, into any podcasts or YouTube videos or blogs or whatnot. But do you ever find yourself like in that comparison trap that is so detrimental to your personal psyche and your personal self-worth? Like, do you ever find that you have to like recenter yourself and be like, focus on Keiona and what Keiona has going on? How do you make sure that you don't fall into that trap? Because that's a big thing for a lot of people.
Absolutely. And I recognize that happens. I will say humbly that I have a moment or two, but I'm quickly reminded because I always have a futuristic kind of viewpoint. Mm-hmm. I know what it took for Jay-Z to become Jay-Z. Mm-hmm. Beyonce. Yeah, once you studied how long these people took and what it took for them to really get to where they are, and I look at myself and I say, all right, I just graduated college. It's not impossible, but it's going to take time. Mm-hmm. I'm quickly reminded that if everything was to pop off today, would I be ready? And I don't know that I would. Mm-hmm. Not from like just from all standpoints, like from am I ready to change my social life? Am I ready to kind of like drop off everything to be in the spotlight? Mm-hmm. And it's like a lot of lessons that I feel like I need to learn and take my time. So I can look around at other podcasters, because podcasting is one thing where, you have to grow your audience. And some people have an audience. You're like, how did you get that audience? It's easy to kind of like be intrigued. Like, how did you do what you did and why? But you just have to be grounded and know that your time will be your time, baby. Mm-hmm. Like, take your time. And I just keep myself reminded, like, am I ready for the pop? No, there's still a couple things that I really want to refine and polish. Mm-hmm. And a lot more connections that I want to make. I'm not saying that I wouldn't get ready, because I don't think nobody is ever 100% ready, right?
I mean, what is ready really? Like, we're all in a different state of unreadiness. Nobody is really ready. It's like having a baby. People always ask me, I have a toddler son, in case you don't know. So people are always like, well, no, I'm not ready to be a mother. Okay, is anybody really ready? If you're ready, you're not ready. Like, you're not ready. Nobody's ready. So it's all good.
I think what I'm saying is keep it in perspective. Like, I had a podcast for a year. Like, what do you mean? Like, the friend zone and them, they are where they are now after doing this stuff for 3 and 5 years. So just take your time. Don't be rushed by the internet. That is a great meme.
Yes.
Just really build. Like Issa Rae was behind, like Issa Rae ain't just came out with Insecure yesterday.
No, Issa was grinding on YouTube with everybody else. Like, it's a process.
It's a process. Trust the process, everybody.
Yep.
Yeah.
So, all right, you talked about social media and how that can lead into that comparison trap thing. But I mean, I think social media can also be a great way to like receive inspiration and see people's creativity. So, like, how do you stay creatively inspired? Like, is there ever a day when it's like, I need to do a podcast this week and I have no idea what to talk about? I feel like I've talked about everything under the sun, or somebody else talked about it, and how could I do it any better than they could? Like, how do you keep that creativity at its peak?
Yeah. Creative blocks are absolutely real.
Yes, so real.
They happen a lot more often than people think they do. You have to, that self-care piece is going to be really important, because when you have a clear mind, you can get all of your vision and ideas out. But when your mind is cluttered and like all over the place and razzled, that is when you realize like you can't even process the way you wanted to. So I did go through a period where I felt like my podcast was like, I don't know, like I feel like I'm not really pouring into it like I did when I first started. And that's why I took somewhat of a hiatus, so to speak, for a couple months of just trying to recenter myself and really understand like, why am I doing this? So you have to revisit the idea of why you're doing what you're doing, right? And it's so much bigger than me just wanting to be on broadcast. It's about sharing positive stories of other people. And so if I'm not positive and able to kind of push that energy to the people that I'm interviewing, then I need to take a step back and reevaluate who I am. So I really did that. I created a self-care challenge.
Which was so fun to participate in, by the way.
Yes, thank you so much, sweetie. And then, that kind of helped me get back into the groove. And I'm telling you, like, now I'm kind of like guns blazing, like ready for 2018. But I had to really like just kind of recenter myself. And one of the biggest things that I also undervalue, or I just say I might not appreciate as much, is kind of like the inspiration that you get from your friends. So sometimes God will send a little angel and tell you like, you know what, Keiona, I haven't heard a podcast in a long time. You're like, dang, like you really listening?
Right. Like somebody out there is listening to these things after I put them out.
And so you have to really kind of like stay tapped into your audience. Like you can get really caught up in like just doing it by yourself and kind of grinding and being focused, but really tap into the people who are like actually listening and following you, and they'll kind of remind you like this has an impact, so please keep doing what you're doing. And people are not afraid to give you their feedback.
Right.
So you will know, you can't take everything, but they'll tell you what they like and what they don't like. So just keep yourself centered, and really just when you feel like you're not having a creative spark, another thing that I do is I will start writing.
Okay.
And just kind of putting pen to paper, a lost art, because you can get caught up behind the laptop and behind the phone. But just really sitting down and taking the time to do that, I think it's a different experience.
Yeah,
so,
there's something cathartic about a pen and a paper. That's
very much.
You get when you're like on some electronic device. That's really awesome.
So
all
that
right.
would.
That's good advice. I like that. Okay, so this is one of my last questions, but I just want to know, like, in your whole podcasting experience thus far, have you received negative feedback or criticism for, really going hard in this podcast? Or like even when you quit your job, like what was the response from your family or people who may not have really agreed with that decision?
Well, I was lucky because I am an open book.
Okay.
And I remember like when I was in college, if I was in a class that I knew probably wasn't going to go the way that I wanted to, it didn't pop up on my mama. My mama knew the journey from the beginning. Like, Mom, I don't know, this test, I didn't do so well on this test. Okay. So I kind of always gave my family temperature gauges about my job. They knew from the beginning how this whole process was working. And I am so lucky because I recognize that everybody doesn't have this, but my mom will support me if I decided tomorrow I wanted to be a scuba diver. Like, she'd be like, what do I need to buy?
Where we
So
going?
shout out to my mom. She really has allowed all of us to be big dreamers and supports us along the way. So she really was down, like, okay, Key, that's what you say you want to do it. And then let's figure out what we need to do next. So I'm grateful for that. So yeah, that it kind of came as a shock, the whole quitting the job thing, but my mom really helped me. She tried to connect me with some people. But as far as like the podcast itself, I know you mentioned earlier something about how other generations don't understand the millennials.
Mm-hmm.
So it was a really big deal for me to even want to share my podcast with my grandma. Okay. My grandma is in her 60s, so she's totally different generation. What is that? The X? Is she X?
I don't think she's X. What's before the boomers? I don't know.
I think it's boomers and it's X.
Okay.
I think. So yeah. She would say, like, why do, like, she would listen to the interviews and she'd be like, oh, y'all quitting y'all jobs. What's wrong with y'all? She wasn't criticizing that way, but she just did not understand, like, why all of us had this same logic. Right. And I just was like, grandma, like, I can't explain it. These are the savages that y'all raised. I wouldn't even say savages, but I think our families don't even understand how confident they made us feel. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yes, that is key. Like, that you can do anything you want to. You can do this, you can do that. Yeah. The world is yours. Like, go take it. That's what we're doing.
Don't tell me that, and then when I say I'm quitting my job, be like, why did you do that?
Yeah.
So that was really, really just crazy to me. And I want to do a podcast episode with my grandma for that very reason.
That would be awesome. You totally should.
Mm-hmm. To talk about how our generations just are different. My mom was in that middle generation of like, yeah, we'll step out a little bit, but we're not finna just quit our jobs. So it's just interesting to have that perspective. I think people, to be authentic on a podcast or any kind of thing where you're expressing yourself, you won't be for everybody. Right. So I have a crazy laugh, and some people are like, you need to tone that laugh down. But I'm like, that's my natural laugh. That's me. Mm-hmm. What do y'all want from me? See, there it goes. But you just have to continue to be yourself. And the people who will receive that will receive that.
Right.
And then those who don't, they won't for now. Mm-hmm. But then when you pop in, they're going to be laughing just like you. Yeah. So I ain't worried.
All right. Well, I like that word. So I'm going to wrap it up now. Thank you so much. This was amazing. I'm going to put you on the spot because I've seen you publicly say this. So I feel comfortable saying that.
Okay.
So Keiona is considering dabbling in video in 2018, and I told her that this was her affirmation, that if she did a great interview, which you did, that this would be your encouragement to go forward and make that happen. So I think I speak for everyone watching when I say that you should definitely make that happen this year, and I'll be watching and waiting. And in the meantime, I encourage you all to check out the new Geechee Podcast. It's hilarious one, and it's very inspirational. And so if you check out the website at www.newgeechee.com, you will get access to what you have going on, the newsletters, the podcast, lots of inspiration from millennials. You're also on social media. What's your social media handle for everyone?
All my handles across Instagram, Twitter, Facebook is New Geechee. No parentheses, no nothing, no space, just NEWGEECHEE.
All right. Well, I hope you all have enjoyed the podcast and get more familiar with Keiona of New Geechee. Thank you so much again.
Yes, thank you so much for having me, Megan, and best of wishes to you. I will not make no promises about video, but I thank you for this opportunity. You're beautiful at what you're doing. You are already just shining. I love it.
Thank you.
You keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. Have a great 2018.
Bye, guys. You too.